Why is shame such a powerful emotion? How does it affect us mentally, physically, emotionally? I'm Nadia Davis. I'm a mom, author, attorney, and Kundalini yoga teacher who has experienced public shaming that brought me to my knees. On this podcast, I'm going to tell you how I'm living the work, taking shame out of the shadows. I'll give you real-life advice and skills to take away with you throughout your day. You'll hear from powerful guests who have overcome trauma and emerged stronger than ever. You too can ban the shame within and around you. Join me. You are not alone. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited for today's guest, and it's such a deep, full circle moment for me personally as a mother in recovery to have Janice Dowd here. All of her titles don't do her work justice at all. Really, honestly, when I started seeing your stuff supporting parents in recovery, it just warmed my heart, and I believe that is the most important work for healing the world. And the very first part of my memoir, not to make this about me, but I want to start by saying this out loud, because I do believe it sets the tone for where our hearts are at as parents in recovery. And I longed so much to give my children this sense of home in their heart, because all along that was really my journey. And the words are, "Please stay here with me, dear son, knowing the one and only truth within. We are infinite beings of love, light, and warmth that nothing can change or hide. And it is here where your true self remains the same, no matter what anyone says or does. And it is here where your life's challenges hold purpose and beautiful rhyme. And it is here, dear son, where we first met and will forever hold hands in time." I mean, as parents in recovery, we experience, right, the past, the future, and the present moments all the time. The past comes up, we get into regret, shame. The future comes up, we get into fear, blame. And it's hard to be present in the present moment for our children. Janice's work, and I hope that mine also really, really resonates, can resonate with any parent out there that's struggling to be in the present moment and to heal their own inner child, to see their inner child so that they can enjoy and truly be present and help their children heal. I know for me that was the journey. And so, Janice, first of all, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a guest on your podcast.
So, okay, Janice is an author. She's a speaker. She's a mother of 4, a recovering alcoholic with 12 plus years of recovery. And she specializes in work with families and relationships. So we can get a whole bunch of tips and get into the content of your work. I want to talk about the heart of your work, and how you you see parents, and how that happens within you. Like how do you describe a home within your heart? How do you ground yourself? What is your process
Oh my
before
gosh.
you're out
So,
there offering?
well, I work a daily program. I mean, I follow the program of 12 steps. It works for me, not necessarily for everyone, but and it's not solely just that. Basically, I mean, I've always been open to other avenues. I'm a Christian. I've been open into my Christian faith and taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I have a friend who's very involved with Siddha yoga, and she's been a huge influence on me when I first got sober in terms of getting back into meditation and learning to be still. So, my recovery program and grounding myself is based on a lot of things. Probably, and I'm thinking as I'm talking, the crucial parts for me in order to stay balanced is to make sure I take care of myself physically, which means
Mhm.
good sleep, rest,
Mhm.
nutrition, take care of
Mhm.
myself spiritually, and then mentally, emotionally. To me, those are kind of tied together because I
Mhm.
love what I do. And working with people helps fuel that intellectual growth. And the last one is socially, which is this is one of the things I preach in the book too, is these four principles that you've got to cover these four areas. Because, and one of the things I think people early in recovery often overlook is their families, and they don't involve families into
Mhm.
their recovery program. So
Mm.
let me back up a little bit, if I could, and just a bit
Totally.
about my history. So I grew up in an alcoholic home. I was, and I identify with a lot of your story in terms of being driven, perfectionist, being driven to succeed, achieve. If I'm getting that right, correct me if I'm not. Um,
Oh no.
but I grew up in
Yes.
an alcoholic family, and my goal from very early on was I want to help other families. I want to help other teenagers not go through what I went through.
Mhm.
So I started my career in social work and in actually working in addictions and working on the family therapy side. As a young person, I drank socially, not very much because I mean, I can look back and say two things. One, I was scared to death of becoming an alcoholic. So I had that kind of alert system up. And two, I had some other pretty good, healthy coping skills mixed in with some not so good addictive behaviors. And that was like fitness, things that like fitness and striving for perfection, striving
Mhm.
to improve in my career, which most people wouldn't identify
Mhm.
as addictive. But I look back now and I go, oh, I was always had that addictive nature. It
Mhm.
was just vented into healthier directions. Bottom line is this: started drinking in my 40s, became an alcoholic. Um, During those last years of my drinking, I only worked as a volunteer, I didn't work in the field. um, And I say that just so that no one thinks that I damaged anyone during those last years.
Mhm.
I was still, though, very active in volunteering, working with my kids' school, mental health, and coaching my kids, all of those kinds of things. I don't know if you experienced this because feel like a lot of your kids are younger than mine. But I went through
Yeah,
this
okay.
phase where I was
Yes.
trying to be the perfect mom and do
Mhm.
everything right.
So I wanna stop you there
Yeah.
politely and kindly ask that we go back to, the little Janice.
Okay.
Do you remember those times when you were just a kid, in your element? So
Mhm.
so free, no, the frequency of addiction comes in, right?
Mhm.
When we're, um I have to do this. I have to be this. It's very subtle, those thoughts, right?
Right.
And that feeling of defectiveness that I
Mhm.
better but do you remember that innocent little Janice before that started?
I that is a great question. I'd like to say I do remember her, but I'm not sure if I do
Okay.
because my earliest memories are about age 3, at which point our family picked up and moved from our stable home to a new home, and everything started fresh, which was a pattern in our lives for
Okay.
a long time. And it is a pattern within me that
Mm.
I struggle with grief, letting go, with getting too attached to someone or something because I might lose it.
Okay.
Um,
Fear
but
of
and
abandonment, fear of
Yeah,
loss. Yeah.
but I do
Yeah.
think about the first, like, 5, 6 years of my life. If I look back through the family history, it was it we looked pretty much like the Cleavers. I don't know if that was true because about the time I was 5 or 6, family lore is that my father had an affair,
Mm.
and it was with someone at work, so he was forced to leave his job, get transferred. There was a
Um,
lot of stress. And so I know that haunts my background and my
I
relationships.
see.
But even deeper than that, which I think you can relate to, is that there were childhood wounds that my parents, because my mother was the child of an alcoholic, my father had alcoholism in the family. Both of them were children of immigrants. Both grew up on farms with some very
Mm.
misogynist thinking, thought
Mhm.
beliefs, men are better than women, women belong in the house, yada, yada, yada. And I think I do know my mom always felt less than. Like, this is what I'm getting at. My mom, even though she wanted the best for me, being the only
Mm.
daughter, still felt like less than. And even though she said, you can get a college degree, you can achieve, there still was that underlying message of, you have to do this so you can take care of yourself in the future. You can't depend upon people. And there was that, I know, in their community, uh, and I hesitate to talk about this because,
Okay. You don't yeah.
yeah, well, in their community, there was some prejudice against my parents, which it's hard for me to talk about that because I'm of European descent, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
But my parents still experienced that they were just farmers' kids. They were, and my
Uh,
dad grew up on a fairly poor farm. So they were
oh,
not as good as the city kids. Those little things, I think.
yes, and do not underestimate the power of that. That's there's prejudice in all
Mhm.
forms.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that, and I look back, and it actually helps me ease some of my day to day shame by
Mhm.
saying that despite all of the mental health training, the therapy, those core wounds, some of which
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
no responsibility for, some of which were passed down to me epigenetically. That those core wounds, pre-verbal wounds,
Mhm.
are there. And
Raised you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the power of doing this for ourselves in recovery as
Mhm,
parents, at least for me, was now I understand that if a perfectionism or a misogynist or what were your others, the fear of abandonment, loss,
mhm,
if those thought patterns raised me and they're in me, that's energy. And so if I
mhm,
notice it today, wow, we can with sobriety, right? Empowering our recovery after sobriety is, oh my gosh, I see that, right?
mhm,
I know my mom, I know my father had this pattern. And
mhm,
you've empowered your recovery by it's not just about understanding the facts, right?
mhm,
You understand the thought pattern and what in learning how thoughts are energy, you literally move from just being in your lower triangle, so in your root survival mode, in
mhm,
your attachments, in your sacral chakra, and you've used your fire in your solar plexus, like literally for understanding and love. So you've lifted all your energy up to your heart, and that's super transformative in recovery. That's what
Mhm.
I'm hearing you. That's the power of you sharing this,
Right.
right?
Yes, yes. And the motivation to continue to do that, to push through
Hmm.
the painful part of that, is knowing that if I don't address it, I'm gonna pass it on to my kids. And in fact, because I got sober at age 50, I did pass it on to my kids.
So wait a second, I'm doing the math. No,
Yeah,
that's impossible. That you're Are you seriously?
I am
So you're
64
62?
years old. It kills me,
No.
but it's good. So,
You're rocking it.
thank you. Thank you.
I'm
That's
54.
my
I'm just
dad's
kidding.
genes. Um, but anyhow, but here's what I want to say too, in
Okay.
defense of myself a little bit, or to help explain it. So I started out with a good I mean, started out doing family therapy and addictions and being aware. And I started out with and I have 2 kids, a break, and then 2 more kids. So
So
the
the
first
patterns
2
got
kids,
Janice, like I'm a goal setter,
oh,
those patterns work in our advantage, right? So I'm a goal
right.
setter, I'm a doer. You became, you know, in this professional field, and you're doing it and you're
Mhm.
volunteering, and then you became a mom. How did that all happen?
Well, I think naturally. I mean, I pursued my career, met and married a traditional man who I'm now divorced from. A lot like my parents, no big surprise there. A much better version than my parents. Not that my parents were bad people, because they did the best they could with what they had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
And I
more
have to,
the awareness. There's no better and bad. Yes.
yes, yes.
Right.
Um, and I would say that until like the first 10 years of our marriage, because I got married in my late 20s, first 10, 12, 14 years of our marriage, alcohol was not, we drank socially, but it was not a big part of our lives. And I still had that mindset, and I still work part time as a social worker, of God, I read every baby book there was at the time, and every developmental, psychology book there was. And I proactively worked on those things with my kids. Not to say like my first 2 kids have a more stable foundation, but they did. They did, because alcohol didn't interfere with it. And they had a little more
Okay.
structure than the second 2 kids, because, I started drinking when they were like 3 and 5 years old. Um,
Now, how was shame popping up then?
oh, well, you know what? The first time shame really popped up was as a mom, that I really
Mm.
struggled with. I grew up with this home where my mom was resentful that she wasn't encouraged to get a college education. She was supposed to be a wife and mother, yada, yada, yada. So her push to me was get a degree, get a job, be all that you can be. I'm just past that feminist stage of the 60s, early 70s. And my mom put a tremendous amount of pressure on me
Mm.
to be a great mom and work full time and have this career, which for me was impossible. And that's where the
Right.
first waves of shame and self doubt,
Okay.
and I had less time for self care. With the more kids you have, the less time you have to go to the gym, to work out, to take time to be quiet, to journal.
So how did
So,
it feel? So, because we're
mhm,
dragging it out of the shadows so people can put a
okay.
name on what they're feeling. How did it feel, and how did it affect you? And let's describe it, because some people are going through it now. I mean, we all do,
Absolutely.
but it's hard to put a name on that feeling of, I call it a feeling of separation, of
Mhm.
defectiveness, of there's something wrong with me,
Unworthy.
right? Okay.
Unworthy.
That's how
Like,
you felt?
there must be something wrong. I'm
Okay.
seeing role models, women who are climbing the ladder and having kids and looking great and I'm comparing myself and I feel like there must be something wrong
Okay.
with me. I am inadequate.
And it's subtle,
Very.
right?
Oh, it's subtle at first because at first you try to overachieve, you try to keep up,
Mhm, mhm.
you
Yes.
know? I mean, I'm flashing back to those preschool days and watching the moms who were in medical sales jobs, making big money, dropping off their kids, having an au pair or someone pick them up, and me just sitting back going, I haven't washed my hair yet
Right.
today, you know? So a lot of comparison, feeling less than. And it was frustrating.
So did you
And
start noticing
oh,
it?
absolutely, I noticed it. Yeah, yeah.
Really, I mean, that's amazing that you noticed it, because a lot
Hmm.
we don't notice.
Right. And thankfully, at the time, I have a group of girlfriends because also I've always lived away from my parents. I didn't have like family members to help support raise the kids, which is,
Mhm.
I live in
That's
South
hard.
Alabama now, and it's very common that children have grandparents that are easily accessible.
Mhm.
But I didn't have that support system. So, but I did create that for a
Neither
long
did
time.
I. You did with
Yeah,
your girlfriends.
with my friends on the street. We lived in a community. This is probably too much information, but we lived in kind of a community that a lot of people moved into, stayed for a few years, and followed their careers and moved out. So it was a lot of stay at home wives and
Mm,
moms or part time working moms. So I found those people and we
okay.
made our own little support system. But here's the catch, this fueled my feelings of abandonment. I mean, because it was that kind of transient community, I'm still here, by
Mhm.
the way, they moved
Okay.
on. And gradually you lose those people, which fueled back into those small childhood issues of being abandoned, left. And okay, this just triggered another thing. I've got
Okay.
to be able to do this on my own.
Okay.
That was one of the values my parents like, you can achieve anything if you work hard, if you try hard, don't ask for help. All of
Mhm.
those little subtle messages that,
As thought patterns, right.
yeah,
Yes.
that are
And those pop up all the
counterproductive.
time. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the fear of abandonment, loss, the, perfectionism, and then I have to do it on my own.
Mhm. And then people leaving you, so you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it on my own."
Mhm.
Someone new moves in, I'm gonna keep my distance because you
So,
might
yeah,
leave
the
me too.
root chakra is all self-preservation. It's
Oh, yeah.
all that survival instinct, and with
Mhm.
those thought patterns ingrained, and we don't notice it. So how long did that I call it a running to standstill feeling, like work, 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 go, 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 right? You don't
Oh my
Did you
gosh.
feel
I
at
don't think it
all?
stopped until I started drinking heavily. I don't think it ever stopped until I went to treatment. That try
Hmm.
to do more, be better, fix myself in one form or another. And,
Alone.
and my drinking started about the time I stopped breastfeeding my last child, and you finally have permission to drink, and it increased gradually over the years because then you have 4 kids. I mean, I look back at my calendars and the after school activities with 4 kids, we might have 4 activities,
Wow.
each child doing something different, or God
So
forbid
what were
someone
the
doing
ages? You said the second time, so you had another set of kids. Gosh, we have a lot
right.
in common. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, and during that time, I gradually let go of some of the other self-help skills that I had known and started drinking. It was a quick, easy fix and was fueling that denial of like, oh, well, I drank normally for 20 years. I'm going to be able to do this now. Filling the hole. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's what it was.
Mhm. And then
Using
it
alcohol.
worked. You were self-sufficient, you were taking care of these kids, getting things done, and every day
Mhm.
what was the feeling that you would wake up with?
Well, before the drinking got out of control, it was like, what do I have to accomplish today? Live by a list, chalk things off. Another message growing up was succeed, accomplish. What can you do? Balance. My husband traveled at the time too. He was gone 3 or 4 nights a
Wow.
week, so I felt like a single parent. Um, so at first it was just not even thinking, it was functioning. And
That's
then
so
when the
interesting that you pointed out I felt like a single parent because,
Mhm,
um, yeah, I had the same feeling with our oldest, not with the youngest by any means. Um, but it's interesting. I almost feel ashamed to say, "Oh, that resonated with me," because his father was present, but always traveling
mhm,
and not in the daily things. Not so. Isn't that interesting? Why do we as mothers? I feel guilt for saying that, but it's absolutely
right.
true, right?
Yeah, and, I feel a little guilt from it too, because one, I didn't recognize it when it was happening, because my dad did that too. My dad traveled. That was normal
Yeah,
to me.
right, right.
I saw my mom pull it all together, but she didn't have a job. She was able she raised us being a stay-at-home mom, which I
And
think
you
is
don't have
less
feelings. You
pressure.
don't. Right, right.
God forbid some stay-at-home mom's gonna get mad at me for that, but, it also was a different time and era where there weren't as
Hmm.
many activities, but yeah, so there was that little bit of guilt, like, I shouldn't complain. This man's no different than what my dad did. My dad was a good guy, et cetera, et
Right,
cetera.
right.
So
Or even have a voice to just express the reality, the
mhm,
experience. Like you can't even say, "Oh, this was a really hard day and this is what
mhm.
happened." I didn't even feel like I could do that. It
No, I
was,
agree. I couldn't
have
either.
your glass of wine and everything cleaned and ready and be this relaxing space for this person who's worked all day, but I don't get to do that, right?
Right, exactly. Get to come home or sleep in the morning, things like that. Yeah. So I don't think I mean, on one hand, I knew it was hard, but on the other hand, I dealt with it by just staying busy, crossing
Right.
things off that list.
Mhm.
You know,
So,
a lot,
how long did that last? And
I can't even tell you.
that one must have been really hard.
Probably, I mean, 10 years. So more like 5 or so.
And in
Towards
your
the end, when my
heart, did you
drinking
have any connection with your heart, the little girl? Did you just feel like there was a hole in your
That's a great
heart?
point. I don't think I paid attention to her at all or her needs.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I was aware of inner child, of adult children of alcoholics, of those traits, but I don't think at that point in my life, I mean, we preached it at work. Yeah, but I do. This is very I got stuff to take to my therapist now. Yeah, that child was just stuffed away for a while, which
Hmm.
kind of makes sense when she came out. She came out kicking and screaming, like,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah, which I think happens a lot to those of us in recovery. Once you remove the alcohol, all the wounds start showing up. And that's when I think we're more prone to relapse or suicide or other addictions.
So
So,
while your heart was there wasn't, you don't have a memory of the time where you could sit within yourself and say, okay, what's going on? What's
mhm,
popping up? And ground your energy, your feelings, your
yeah,
okay, what's happening right now? It was that separate feeling. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean by your true self? There's no other deeper
yeah.
dialogue with
There
your
wasn't.
soul, your inner child. Okay. I think
And
many
one of the
people
things that I
resonate with that.
one of the things that I did, I was a runner. Um, And that was one way, but that's really addictive too, because it was like getting the endorphins. That's still detaching. I'm processing this as we talk. That's still not getting in touch with the inner self or the shadow. It's not looking at the
Well,
shadow.
how do we? We don't, right? We don't
Mhm.
have that question posed to us by ourselves, let alone another person, until we fall, right? Until
Mhm.
we just can't anymore, and we don't even know words to put on that feeling, right?
Right. That's true.
So that's the home within that is so important, that safe place to
Mhm.
share, cry, and be vulnerable with our own inner self and build that relationship with the higher power. I believe we have to have that space in our own heart,
Yeah.
right? First.
Yeah, absolutely. I for me, early recovery was focusing on learning recovery skills. And then I hit a point where it wasn't enough. I kind of hit a codependent or a ACA bottom, and I started to work on those issues, really
Right?
embrace them. And that made all the difference in the world. And that's one of the things I talk about at workshops and things like that too, because I think it's so important for that balance in your health and also for relapse prevention.
Right. Well,
So,
those patterns, I had the exact same experience. The 12 steps helped with the physical sobriety and
mhm,
breaking the isolated emotions, right? We start building
right.
a community, we start putting words on the feelings, um, and one day at a time. So when did that deeper pattern recognition start? For me, I didn't until several relapses got me deeper into noticing those patterns and healing. What was your journey? How did you get to that tipping point of physical sobriety alone isn't
Yeah.
enough?
It was gradual. I say this in a way that might surprise some people that I went to treatment thinking I was going to get, well, I tried getting sober through AA, didn't didn't do it alone. Needed more because I had those inner child wounds. You quit alcohol, that pain comes up. So in the last 3 months of drinking when I was trying to moderate or quit my
Hmm.
drinking, all of those feelings started to arise. When I hit my bottom and went to treatment, I would say, I went for 4 weeks. I ended up staying for 12. And
Wow.
the primary reason is because I needed it. But, that first couple of weeks of sobriety, one, your brain still has fog. Two, you're still craving alcohol. Your focus is on other things. And there's all kinds of physical detox. So I would say about the second week, little God things started to happen that made me go, okay, I do need more. I need more. I am wounded. I don't have to be this perfect mom. I can be vulnerable. I felt this huge amount of
Wow.
shame of going to treatment for alcoholism when I had once worked I started out my career in addiction treatment, inpatient treatment. Kept that a secret, those first couple of weeks.
Right.
And then little things happened. And I was encouraged to go to the 6 week more intensive program. We called it
So
Up the
what
Hill.
was that turning point?
Oh,
Please describe that, because especially as parents, when there's treatment, jail, hospitalizations, and
mhm,
or formal separation from children, whether in a divorce separation or the courts, and you're newly sober, um, and there's so many outside stresses, and then you're starting to feel it all.
mhm.
That's an absolute miracle to get to the point of saying, I need to stay, and that courage that you must have had.
Mhm.
Describe what was it?
Well, it originated from fear.
Mm.
Well, I would see, you know, the program was rolling. Someone was always coming in, someone was always graduating. And I would see people graduating and me thinking, I hope I'm at that point where they are. Or I'd see them graduate and go to a halfway house, and I'd be like, oh, that they're so lucky they get to go to a halfway house. They have
Mhm.
more support. And then I got
Mhm.
to the point where I realized I was in this really safe environment. There's no, very little temptation, little
Did
access.
all the others have children, or were you one
Oh
of
no,
the
we were a mix, a huge mix.
Isn't that
So,
interesting? There's
yeah,
such a parents, it's like so much, I'm just gonna say it, it's so much more difficult and complicated.
it is.
There's so little support. We need so much more recovery options for parents to go get the
Mhm.
help they need with their children. That's possible,
There are,
right?
yeah, there are a few
Redirections for
halfway houses.
women. Yeah.
But there's just not many. And even
Mm.
the facility I went to, which I highly recommend, I won't mention them, but they had a family program, but it wasn't a very thorough family program. And that's a whole agenda that I have too about how family services should be a bigger
Oh
part
my,
of
there's a
treatment.
massive advocacy
Yeah.
voice in my memoir about that. We should do series on that specifically.
Yes.
Are
Yeah.
you kidding, ladies and gentlemen? The mothers in recovery rise. Like, we need to advocate for more. So you
Yeah.
were alone in that when you went into treatment?
What do you mean?
You were the only parent that was
No,
there?
no. Well, I would say, okay, so this is a pretty big facility, and I was in, we called them cottages. So there's probably 30 people in the cottage. And true to the nature of health insurance and Obamacare, like half of the people were under age 26, and the
Uh-huh.
other half were people like me who had some level of insurance or
Uh-huh.
jobs still. When I moved to the longer term program, I was in a program with really primarily military professional athletes, medical, lawyers, professionals who were trying to maintain their licenses. So that was more age appropriate, like 40 and above. But
Mhm.
now the good thing about being in that mixed group, because there were some parents, not a lot, more men than women.
Mhm.
Um, but the nice thing about it is that it helped me. At first, I was very much in denial, like how much damage I'd done to my kids because I thought I'd hit it. My
Mhm.
drinking, I was wrong. But being around those other 20 somethings, my oldest two children when I went to treatment were 20 and 21.
Mhm.
And some of the kids there were that age. I started learning from them and hearing about their experiences of being the child of an alcoholic. And that helped me too. I realized, like, oh my God, if I don't get my act together, if I don't really dig into this, my kids are going to be here in treatment in a couple of
Mm.
years. You know, so that was a motivation too. It was a good, I'm glad that I was in that mixed environment those first couple of weeks. Saw a little bit of everything. Everyone who was escaping jail, coming to treatment because they didn't want to go to jail. Two, we had this gentleman who had stage 4 cancer, had been on all kinds of pain meds. He came to detox so that he could die with a clear mind. I got chill bumps thinking about him.
Wow.
You know, so you have
Wow.
people at all levels, and you had, you know, doctors and lawyers who are scared to death of losing their licenses. They want to maintain their
Mhm.
professions. It's good. It's good. That also helps reduce the guilt and shame because you see it happens to everyone.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to see, God, my eyes were opened up a lot. Even having been in this field to see, like, oh, there's a nurse who's went from opioids to stealing morphine at work to street drugs. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, oh, and she's got as much education as me. She's my age. We're equal. She has kids. All of that help. That helps. That's the community part.
Mhm.
Reducing isolation helps remove that shame, the guilt and shame. So the process of like catching on
Normalizing.
and how I realized I was a train wreck and needed more, and I say that with pure love for myself, um, was gradual. Witnessing, oh, I identify a little bit with this person, I identify with that person, I need it, and then there was the little practical side of me too that was, well, I'm here, I'm going to get my money's worth.
Mhm.
That's my old parents' message. Um, and I'm investing this. I'm going to put both feet in and just dive in.
And be the
So
perfect
when I was
recovered
like,
woman.
I got moved up to the other more intensive program and I knew that I had struggled with grief. They had intensive therapy groups, one for military guys, one's for PTSD, one for trauma, one for grief. And I knew I needed that grief group.
Mhm.
So about halfway through the grief group, I started talking about um, the sexual trauma I had experienced and never had told anyone about. So when my therapist came to me and went, "We think you need to stay longer so you can go through the trauma group." By that
Mhm.
time, I was like, I'll do whatever. I am just surrendering to this program. I'm surrendering to your advice. It took
Wow.
me 50 years to get this screwed up. I'm not going to get fixed overnight. I'm
Do you
going to embrace.
realize that when I asked you about your childhood,
Uh huh.
it wasn't mentioned, and that now when we're sharing the recovery journey
Mm-hmm.
and how you ended up sharing it with another human being. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting that
Yeah.
we don't mention it right away?
No. And see, because I have two incidents, a childhood
Okay.
incident, which happened somewhere around age 6 or 7, which
Mhm.
thank God my brother intervened and rescued me
Wow.
before it got too far. We both still carry the guilt and shame about that, though. Never
Say
talked
more.
about it. And in fact, early on in my as a social worker, I would have said, "Oh, well, that wasn't child sexual abuse because there wasn't penetration." You know what I mean? I would have said, "That's not as bad as." But what I've learned in recovery is that it's trauma. It was
Eh,
unresolved trauma that haunted me and fueled some other behaviors.
See,
So,
our ego will come in and fear, fear I'm going to hurt someone's feelings, or fear of
mhm,
the judgment, when it is, if we choose love, it is simply your truth of experience. It
mhm,
it it didn't change who you are and your true self, whole, divine, complete, but it created a a story, a label, something in your head that has to be seen and
mhm,
heard and acknowledged to then be able to use it to empower yourself, right? To get closer to your soul. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, that false belief is popping up. That's my ego, but that's not my true self. Because
right.
otherwise they keep popping up and it's like, oh, it's just that, it's just that. But we can actually use it to remind
Mhm.
ourselves we're a soul and a body.
It's a piece of the puzzle, and that's
Yes.
why looking at those wounds is, I think, hugely important.
For
So,
transforming shame into
yeah,
power.
and I really
Yeah.
didn't even just realize that was abuse until I was probably 4 or 5 years sober, and I'm in a women's ACA group, and we're talking about it, and they're like,
So it was there that you
"Janice, had
processed.
anything ever happened to you?" And I went, "Well, there's this one thing." And everyone looks at you and goes, "Oh, that was abuse." I'm
And
like,
you had minimized it.
"Yeah, it's not that bad. It's not as bad anyhow." But I had talked about the other event in trauma as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of a date rape situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they said. You need to stay. We don't want you to go home. We want you to dig into this stuff. And then a big part of my story is, this is totally a different tangent, but I think it's important that while I was getting healthy, my family didn't have the same access to care, and they were removed from me by about 250 miles. So I was progressing, diving into this stuff, but I was creating this wall between us. And they weren't progressing at the same pace. And there was a lot of conflict between where I was at and where they were at. And so by the time I finished treatment, they're like, we don't think you can stay sober at that house.
Wow. Okay, folks, that is part 1. Make sure you check out part 2 to hear the rest of Janice's super inspiring story and how she helps parents in recovery today. Mothers, fathers out there, you are not alone. It can become an extremely beautiful, powerful experience with sobriety, with our growth, and please check out the next episode, okay? We are by your side. Okay, bye. You are not alone. If you are dealing with shame and trauma, please reach out to me through my website, nadia-davis.com. You can get a free Ban Shame tip sheet and find out about upcoming events. I'd love it if you picked up my book, Home is Within You, wherever books are sold. If you like this podcast, please tell a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow me on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sending warm hugs.